Some people never steal from you. They just convince you to give everything away. They simply talk about values, about friendship, about doing the right thing, until one day you look around and realize you've given them everything. This is not a story about friendship. It's a story about what happens when kindness meets someone who knows how to use it. One morning, beside a quiet pond, an old water rat poked his head out of his hole. Nearby, a duck tried patiently to teach her ducklings how to stand on their heads in the water. "You'll never be respected," she told them, "unless you learn this." The ducklings ignored her. The water rat laughed. "Disobedient children," he said. "They deserve to be drowned." The duck bristled. "Everyone has to begin somewhere." The water rat flicked his tail. "I know nothing about family," he said proudly, "but friendship, that is the noblest thing in the world." A small green linnet, listening from a willow tree, asked quietly, "And what does a devoted friend do?"
True friendship,
The water rat
requires
smiled.
guidance.
"He is
It is not
devoted
for
to
the
me,
faint
of
of
course." The linnet paused, then said, "Let me tell you a story." In a small village nestled between rolling green hills, there lived a gentle young boy named Hans. Hans was only 16. He had bright blue eyes that shone with kindness, a straight, gentle face often touched with quiet hope, and hands that were rarely clean, for they were always busy tending the earth. He was small and slender, and though his clothes were simple and patched, he carried himself with a quiet dignity. Hans loved his garden. It was not large, but it was beautiful. Roses climbed along the fence. Primroses bloomed in cheerful clusters. Violets hid shyly beneath broad leaves. Every flower seemed to grow a little brighter under his care. And in the warmer months, when the sun was kind and the air was sweet, the miller would visit. Hugh the Miller was a large man, strong, confident, respected in the village. He would stand among the flowers and speak at length about friendship. Hans would listen with admiration. He believed every word. The miller often carried away baskets of flowers from Hans's garden, and Hans was always glad to give them. After all, what was friendship if not generosity? But when winter came, everything changed. The flowers withered beneath frost, the trees stood bare, the wind grew sharp, and the miller stopped visiting. From that day forward, the miller's visits became frequent. There was always something that needed to be done. A heavy sack to carry to the market, a roof that required mending, a fence that needed repair. Each request was framed carefully within another lecture about loyalty and moral duty. Hans, small and slender, barefoot upon the rough ground, his fair, freckled skin flushed from effort, and his messy brown hair damp with sweat, listened attentively and agreed each time. His bright blue eyes reflected both determination and caution, yet he never allowed caution to grow into doubt. One evening, as thick clouds gathered low over the hills and the wind began to hum uneasily through the trees, the miller arrived with unusual urgency. In his hands was a heavy sack of grain. "It must reach the town tonight," he insisted firmly. A true friend would not hesitate. Hans glanced toward the darkening sky. The air had grown heavy, and distant thunder rolled faintly beyond the moor. His patched linen shirt fluttered against his slender frame as the wind strengthened. Yet he nodded. He lifted the sack onto his shoulders, his small body straining beneath the weight, and set out along the narrow road. The storm rose swiftly. Rain fell in sharp, cold sheets that soaked through his clothes and plastered his messy brown hair against his forehead. Mud clung to his bare feet, making each step more difficult than the last. Lightning tore across the sky, briefly illuminating his straight, gentle face, now tightened with effort, but still marked by that determined, cautious resolve. The tall grasses bent violently around him, and the path grew indistinct beneath pooling water. He pressed forward despite the darkness, despite the wind that stole his breath, and the rain that stung his freckled skin. His slender frame swayed beneath the burden of the grain sack, yet he refused to turn back. Friendship, he believed, demanded perseverance. Somewhere along the flooded stretch of road, in the deepest hour of the storm, Hans lost his footing. The path had vanished beneath rushing water. The wind roared across the open moor, and thunder cracked overhead with merciless force. By morning, the storm had passed. The sky cleared slowly, revealing hills washed clean and quiet beneath pale sunlight. The road curved gently as it always had, indifferent to what had transpired in the night. And beside that road lay Hans. His small and slender body rested motionless against the wet earth. His patched linen shirt clung to him, and his brown trousers were heavy with mud. His freckled face, once bright with hope, was still. His hands, slightly dirty as they had always been from honest labor, lay open and empty. The village mourned him days later beneath a subdued sky. They spoke kindly of his goodness and devotion. They described him as generous, loyal, and sincere. The miller stood among them, dressed in dark formal clothing, his broad figure upright and solemn. "I was his best friend," he declared with measured gravity. "I shall never forget his loyalty." The words drifted into the air and dissolved without answer. Hans's garden, untended now, slowly returned to silence. The roses climbed as they pleased. The primroses bloomed and faded with the passing weeks. Weeds crept cautiously along the stone path. The gate swayed in the breeze. Life continued, as it always does. And the world, vast and unmoved, carried on without the gentle boy who had believed so completely in the virtue of friendship. Perhaps that is the lesson that lingers, not loudly, but quietly. Not all who speak of loyalty understand it, and not all who give their strength receive kindness in return.